Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in this video we are going to bring together everything we know about the upcoming Dark SDeception Chapter 4. By doing this we can theorise as to what the theme of Chapter 4 may end up being, and also where the story is headed next. In previous videos we have touched on aspects of the next 3 nightmare portals and their hidden meanings. Today we bring all of that groundwork together and consolidate it into one final video. So sit back, relax, and let's analyse this upcoming chapter. Recently, in a Q&A livestream, game director Vince Livings finally announced the title of Dark SDeception Chapter 4, Mortal Ramifications.
Chapter 4 is called Mortal Ramifications.
So, what does this title mean? Well, it means consequences of a mortal's actions, and we currently have 2 mortals within the story of Dark SDeception. Our character Doug Hauser, and the mysterious woman handing out orders and promising Doug his redemption, Beerus. This suggests Chapter 4 will show ramifications of both Doug and Beerus' actions throughout the game, stealing soul shards from Malak within these nightmare portals in a bid to rebuild the ring altar known as the Riddle of Heaven. We know Beerus wanted this altar rebuilt, as it will allow her to gain Malak's power and reverse the contract he has over her soul. This is illustrated in these passages.
Finally, a breakthrough in the search. There are rumours of a ring called the Riddle of Heaven, somewhere in China or possibly Tibet. It could be the answer I've been looking for. All I have to do is find it.
However, the ramifications of aiding Beerus may be quite fatal for Doug, and we must also remember that Beerus herself doesn't actually know what will happen when the altar is completed. Malak has warned of grave danger if the pair continue on their current path.
I'm coming to collect what is owed, and I'm bringing your worst nightmares with me. You give her that ring piece, and you're going to regret it.
Beerus may end up with more than she bargains for if her mission is a success, and it seems Malak is about to unleash Doug's worst nightmares upon him to boot. Elements from his past that will push his mental and physical health to breaking point in a bid to prevent the restoration of the ring altar. So what could these nightmares be? Well, first let's take a look at the first of Chapter 4's 3 new portals, the Reaper Nurses. It has been confirmed by the developer Glowstick Entertainment that the nurse portal will take place in a hospital as expected. This is interesting though, as a hospital environment ties into Doug's story in 3 different ways. Now before getting to that, I would like to propose a concept for Chapter 4 and its continuation of Doug's story. I believe Chapter 4 will show, as the title suggests, not only the ramifications of Doug's actions, but the ramifications of others' actions towards him. On one hand, we may see Doug's nightmares as a child, and on the other hand, the nightmares he dealt with as an adult as a ramification of his twisted actions. After all, it is because of his sinful behaviour towards his family that Doug ended up seeking redemption at the mercy of Beerus in her own pocket dimension. So, back to that hospital. The first way this location ties into Doug's story is pretty simple. He was likely born here. Most people are born in hospital wards, and if this chapter is a chronicle of Doug's childhood, then his birthplace would be part of that. However, I don't expect the game to focus on this aspect all too much. We know that Doug lived in regret after he drove his wife and daughter away, and are led to believe he may have had a hand in a car accident which ended in their deaths. Evidence of this can be seen in this drawing on a whiteboard hidden within Chapter 2. And evidence of Doug's resentment towards his family can be seen on the walls of the secret rooms, as well as in secret notes found in Chapter 3. The writing on the walls almost seems at odds with itself at times, sometimes agreeing with Doug's choices and other times condemning him for them. It's as if the graffiti comes straight from Doug's own head, his fractured, chaotic mind laid bare for all to see. Adding further evidence to his sinister involvement in his family's death is this image released to tease Chapter 4 last year. It shows police cars parked along a bridge. The bridge appears to be based on those found in New York City, a place we know Doug worked as a lawyer, and a city he was arrested in, according to this newspaper report from the Crazy Carnival stage. It seems this may have been the bridge Doug's family had their accident on, falling into the water below. The text above, "Show me who you really are," suggests Doug must finally confront these demons. So then, the hospital would be a place where Doug ended up going after this accident, his family ending up there before passing away. The nurses certainly have a New Yorker accent too. Coincidence?
Do you want to become one of our new patients? I just need to take a small blood sample.
As mentioned, Doug's wife and daughter Tammy both suffered from mental illness, the latter ending up at the hospital to consult with doctors and get a diagnosis. So, this hospital setting also ties into Doug's anxiety of his own family and their health. It was due to this that he came to resent them, where in reality he should have tried to help them. Another symbolic place of sin in his story. The final way in which the hospital setting may connect with Doug's story comes when we start speculating as to what happened to Doug himself. How did he end up in this limbo dimension with Bierce? Could Doug be dead and therefore his body ended up in hospital, his final resting place before the grave? Or perhaps more likely, he is currently in a hospital in a comatose state on the brink of death and therefore able to connect with this demon realm. Some of the music from the hospital stage seems to contain samples of a life support machine, the bleeps of a heartbeat monitor. This suggests Doug's physical being may indeed still be alive in the human realm within the walls of a hospital. So to summarise, the themes of this stage would be birth, tragedy, and death. Next up we have the Joy Joy Gang. These are terrifying looking animal mascots originating from a theme park called Joy Joy Land. There's Hangry the Pig, Penny the Chicken, and Lucky the Rabbit, each more twisted than the last. Once again, these would tie into both aspects of Doug's childhood and his progression into adulthood. We know Doug grew up to become self-centered, anxiety-prone, money-hungry, and abusive in all manner of ways, including forms of sadism. These traits formed from somewhere, and while I'm no psychologist, it's fairly easy to conclude a person may turn out this way as a result of a traumatic childhood. Each of these Joy Joy Gang members could easily represent a member of a group of bullies who made young Doug's school life a living hell.
Where you going, buddy? The fun's just starting!
According to developer Vince Livings, the Joy Joy Gang are all much taller than Doug. This height difference makes sense if these are portrayals of Doug's bullies, as he would have felt both lower than them and powerless at their hands. They tower above him because they made him feel small and powerless throughout his childhood. But not only are these Joy Joy members a symbol of Doug's bullies, they may also be associated with his general fear of animatronics. Remember back to chapter 3 within the Crazy Carnival stage. Beers mentioned Doug had coulrophobia, the fear of clowns.
Let me guess. Coulrophobia?
With this in mind, it is not too much of a stretch to imagine his childhood may have contained a fear of a great many things similar, including animal mascots. If you've ever been to a Chuck E. Cheese, you'll understand how these family-friendly animatronics can often appear quite creepy. So part of Joy Joy Land's inclusion in Chapter 4 may also be there to remind Doug of theme park related trauma he experienced as a child. But what about Doug as an adult? How do these Joy Joy members tie in with the person he became? Well, this one is far easier to conclude. Each member is a negative element of Doug's subconscious, a toxic part of his personality. Hangry seems to be constantly hungry and feeds on human ribs. Doug was a lawyer who was money hungry and most likely defended and acquitted some pretty bad people, all in the name of making a quick buck. Penny is a little harder to work out as we have yet to see too much of her personality. However, we do know Lucky the Rabbit is a sadist from one of Vince Living's Q&A events.
Of course I love Lucky, because he's kind of a sadistic Italian. And I'm part Italian, so it's kind of like a nice little thing in common we have, minus the sadistic nature.
This character trait is present in Doug, as he is known to be abusive towards women, judging from this newspaper statement in Chapter 3. So it seems the Joy Joy gang may represent the bullies who picked on Doug, and also the bully Doug became as an adult. The final nightmare portal belongs to Mama Bear and her trigger teddies. These bears inhabit a cave, as you would expect. However, they aren't real bears, but once again, toys. You can see a trend with Chapter 4 and its association with childhood objects. Previously, I mentioned Doug's upbringing must have fed into his twisted behaviour as an adult, and Mama Bear is one of the biggest offenders, being a representation of Doug's overbearing mother, if you'll excuse the pun.
Mama Bear is coming to get you.
Doug was most likely raised by a parent who smothered him with affection and didn't allow him to look after himself. As Doug grew up, his mother became a toxic influence in his life, someone who caused him great shame and anxiety, and again this fed into his seeming hatred towards women later in life, and his distancing from any kind of serious emotional engagement with other people. Now his mother has returned in the form of Mama Bear to torment Doug in his nightmares. The trigger teddies may also be Doug's abusive siblings. Perhaps he was the ugly duckling of the family, and therefore tormented by his brothers and sisters growing up. But what about the cave-like environment itself? Does this have something to do with Doug? There isn't too much evidence to theorise on here, but I'd wager this is symbolic too. We've looked at how this stage represents Doug's childhood, but not how it ties into adulthood. From what we have been shown, the cave is full of skeletal remains and contains a light at its centre. It seems we are navigating into the very heart of this environment, and this to me represents Doug's own dark heart, a journey into the bleakest and most disturbing parts of his psyche, where he will finally have to confront the person who shaped him from birth into the monster he became, his mother. All the while literally stepping over the casualties of his past. And with that, we come to the end of this Chapter 4 theory. Now this will probably be my final theory video on Dark Deception until Chapter 4 actually launches, although I will keep you guys up to date with any relevant news as always. I hope this video has given you some ideas and food for thought as we wait for Doug's story to reveal itself in the future. If you have enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like, comment down below, and subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you all on the next one.